So this weekend, we all went as a family to the circus
which was lovely.
until my daughter spent the next 2 days performing a Cirque du Soleil routine in the living room.
And that's exactly why we're talking about today's topics.
Because I was texting you being like, is this okay? She's about to do a swan dive from the edge of the couch.
Better than the stairs. Kids are naturally adventurous. They climb higher, they jump further, they take bigger risks, and most of the time, that's how they learn.
But sometimes
That's how they meet orthopedic surgeons.
it's so fun.
Which brings us to today's episode.
Dun, 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 dun. The summer of broken bones. Hopefully not for you, but it does happen.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Welcome to today's episode of the Rolin Forward podcast. I'm Dr. Stephanie Rolin.
I'm Dr. Alicia Rolin.
I'm a psychiatrist.
And I'm a pediatrician.
We're sisters, physicians, researchers, and podcasters.
And this summer, we're doing something a little different.
Every week, we're going to tackle a summer safety topic in our summer school series.
And these are lessons that we learn in the emergency department every year. Things that make summer fun can be surprisingly dangerous.
And we've chosen to do this because the summer is fun, but like you said, it is surprisingly dangerous in that a disproportionate number of injuries happen over the summer.
Preventable injuries.
Preventable injuries specifically. So these episodes are not to scare you, but to teach you some evidence-based tricks that might keep you out of the emergency department. And as we've alluded to, this week, we're going to be talking about broken bones.
We want to be clear that some broken bones are just part of being a kid.
I had a few of those growing up.
I had a few of those as an adult. The goal isn't to eliminate every risk. It's to make sure that kids can have fun while avoiding the injuries that are predictable and preventable.
So that you can avoid a visit to your emergency department.
That would make me, and likely you, very happy.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
So let's start at the top. The number one thing I think people ask you about, trampolines.
Trampolines.
Because I think every parent listening either owns one or knows someone who does.
And most pediatric emergency physicians have some opinions about them.
Why?
It's just that trampolines are incredibly efficient injury-producing machines.
Feels like a really harsh judgment.
The most common injuries are fractures, sprains, dislocations, and head injuries.
What's the biggest risk factor when it comes to trampolines?
It's having all the kids jump on the trampoline at the same time.
Really? It's not doing the swan dive?
It's usually having two kids or more kids of very different sizes. The bigger child lands as the smaller child is about to jump up, and the trampoline recoils, and they get launched into the air.
And let's be fair, kids love to do this on purpose. I called it a double bounce, and it was my favorite thing as a kid.
We would have 5 people try to double bounce the smallest person and literally launch them up like a rocket.
And the issue with that is that all of a sudden, now we're talking about broken arms or a tibia fracture.
I think the question I get asked most about is safety nets and trampolines. And do safety nets make trampolines safe?
I mean, they're literally called safety nets. It sounds like they'd make them safe.
They help prevent children from falling off the trampoline. They don't prevent injuries on the trampoline.
Okay. So that doesn't actually sound very safe now. What does the AAP say about trampolines?
So the American Academy of Pediatrics has been pretty consistent over the years. They discourage recreational trampoline use at home.
Which is stronger than I expected, considering how many families I know have one, especially during the pandemic.
Most families are pretty surprised by the recommendation. The concern isn't that every trampoline is dangerous, it's that the injury rate is high enough that pediatricians have been worried about them for decades.
So for families who are going to own one anyways, what can they do to minimize the risk of injury?
Something that a lot of my colleagues say, something that I recommend, is only having one jumper at a time. No double bounce. That's where all the injuries really happen.
Especially when kids of different sizes are bouncing.
Making sure that there's adult supervision as much as you can, telling kids not to flip or somersault. Landing on your neck is not great. And making sure that the safety padding and netting are in good condition.
Okay, so that covers home trampolines. But I'm sure that a lot of families listening are still going to take their kids to trampoline parks.
Absolutely. I'm not under the illusion that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations are going to shut down the trampoline industry. Lots of families really enjoy going to trampoline parks. They were very fun.
Or that our podcast is going to single-handedly be that decisive factor.
But there's a few practical things to keep in mind as you're going to a trampoline park. And the first is check your local park and see if they separate by size or if it's a free-for-all.
Because it sounds like a 6-year-old and a 16-year-old really shouldn't be jumping in the same area.
Again, you should avoid flips and somersaults unless your child is specifically trained. And I think one of the most important things is to pay attention to fatigue.
It is really tiring. I mean, the best part about the trampoline park is the nap that your kid takes afterwards.
A surprising number of injuries happen at the end of the visit when your kids are tired and coordination starts to decline and they're not paying as much attention.
Anything else parents should keep in mind?
The biggest thing to remember is that trampoline parks are not babysitters. Parents should still be paying attention because when an injury happens, it happens really, really fast.
So that covers trampolines. Now, I think the next thing that comes up for me, especially in this hot weather, is bouncy houses. There's so many of them. They're so fun. They're cool, right?
The trampoline's inflatable cousin. Kids love them, and orthopedic surgeons love them as well.
Are you saying that they're dangerous?
I'm just saying that a group of excited children throwing themselves at one another inside an inflatable structure might occasionally lead to some injuries.
That seems fair.
Most injuries happen, like with trampolines, when children of different sizes are bouncing together or when children collide into one another.
There's also a fair number of injuries that happen when kids are getting in or out of the bouncy house. It's quite high.
I don't know if you remember being a child. Getting in and out of the bouncy house was way more difficult than being able to just jump up and down.
It's absolutely making sense. Now I can easily see injuries happening then.
If you are just happening to climb in while someone is jumping down, and you fly right off the bouncy house.
It's really true. So what would your biggest safety tip be for bouncy houses? Because my daughter's school loves to have them. And I want to really make sure that if she's going to be on there, it's going to be as safe as possible.
Similar to trampolines, you want to separate children by size whenever possible.
And that's something that her school does well, actually. Each classroom where the kids are all similarly sized goes separately. So it's just the 3-year-olds, then just the 4-year-olds, and then just the 5-year-olds. And no parents are allowed in with them. And they're also really careful about making sure that the kids have assistance getting in and out.
Another thing that parents don't always realize is that wind is actually a major risk factor for bouncy houses. Every year, there are reports of multiple deaths from bouncy houses becoming airborne.
I remember recently reading a tragic news story about a young child who died in a bouncy house in Montreal when it was a windy day and it was carried away. That's just a nightmare.
Make sure that the bounce house is properly anchored. Stop using them if they become windy. And I'm surprised I have to say this out loud. Don't use them in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Do not.
It's a bad idea.
All right. So next up, we have the monkey bars.
The natural predator of the pediatric elbow.
That sounds really personal.
You've broken your arm enough time to know that that is true.
It is true. So what do you see related to monkey bars?
The classic monkey bar is that you swing, 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 fall.
So the child falls, puts out their hand, the force travels up the arm, and all of a sudden we're looking at a wrist fracture, a forearm fracture, or sometimes a fracture of one of the bones of the elbow.
This doesn't mean that we need to ban monkey bars.
Oh, so you're a doctor maybe now.
Playgrounds are good for kids. They build strength, confidence, coordination, and independence. The goal is knowing when an injury might be serious. So if a child refuses to use their arm after a fall, or if it looks very deformed, they should be evaluated.
How about anything parents can do to reduce injuries?
Age-appropriate equipment helps. A 3-year-old should not be on a monkey bars that's made for tween.
Makes sense.
Playground surfaces matter. Rubberized surfaces, wood chips, and mulch are much safer than concrete or asphalt. When we were young, all playgrounds were concrete.
I remember falling that and really hurt. It seems like today playgrounds are much softer and they have that bounce to catch you.
Those can really help, but most importantly is being supervised and not be on equipment that is 3 times your height.
And now let's go on to scooters and bikes, more summer favorites. And I think what we really need to talk about here are helmets.
Helmets. We can always talk about helmets.
Because I feel like that's your love language. You get a helmet. You get a helmet. You get a helmet. Everyone gets a helmet.
Everyone gets a helmet. That's correct.
But Alicia, do helmets actually make a difference?
They make a huge difference. Head injuries are among the most serious that we see, and helmet use significantly reduces the risk of head injury, serious brain injury, and death. And this is one of the easiest evidence-based recommendations that we could ever make.
Wearing a helmet even for short rides?
Especially for short rides, most injuries actually happen close to home. I think what's also really important about helmets is having a properly sized helmet that fits on your head, that doesn't fall off when you fall off. And sometimes that can be more difficult to find, especially for kids with natural hair.
It's true. And there's a number of products out there to help make fitting helmets over natural hair more easy. And then beyond helmets, with bikes, we're seeing a lot of e-bikes and motorized scooters as well, because these seem a little bit different than regular bikes or regular scooters.
They are. And one of the biggest misconceptions parents have is that they're just slightly faster versions of bikes or scooters.
And they're not?
They're not. So many e-bikes and motorized scooters can travel 15, 20, even 30 miles per hour. And at those speeds, injuries start looking very different.
Meaning?
You have a lot more severe fractures, more facial injuries, more head injuries, and more severe trauma.
Because physics.
Because physics. Higher speed means more force. More force means more severe injuries.
What is the biggest mistake that parents make when it comes to these e-bikes and e-scooters?
I think the biggest mistake that we see is that we treat them like toys. Parents hear scooter, kids hear scooter, but in reality, they're motorized vehicles going up to 30 miles per hour.
I hate how much sense that makes.
When I started training, I wasn't seeing nearly as many e-bike injuries as we are seeing now. And it's not because kids are becoming less coordinated. It's because the vehicles and accessibilities have changed. There's a Lime scooter, there's a Lime bike on every street corner in DC.
Any safety advice that you have?
Wear a helmet every time, even if you're just renting the Lime scooter to go up 5 blocks. No exceptions. Before you get on an motorized bicycle or scooter, really think about, is this really necessary? Do I have to ride this scooter on the road to get to where I need to go, or is there an alternative? Because the reality is we're seeing a lot of high-speed collisions with e-bikes, with e-scooters, and motor vehicles.
And now that brings us to ATVs.
ATVs genuinely scare pediatric emergency physicians.
More than trampolines?
Yes. ATVs are heavy, they're fast, they're powerful, and they can roll over.
What kind of injuries do you see with ATVs?
We can see really, really severe injuries, including head injuries, chest injuries, belly injuries, and lots of very severe fractures. So while we talk about monkey bars having a fracture of your wrist or elbow, with ATVs, we can fracture bigger bones like the femur.
And what do the experts recommend?
The American Academy of Pediatrics generally recommends that children younger than 16 do not operate ATVs. And that's because the injury and fatality data are so concerning. Many crashes involve rollovers, excessive speed, or children operating vehicles that are simply too large and too powerful for them.
Any advice for people who are going to ride them anyways?
Do not ride one with a child on your lap.
That's an important one.
I've seen that so many times. Do not let your 2-year-old control the steering wheel. But most importantly, wear a helmet, wear protective gear, and always have appropriate supervision if your kids are on ATVs.
It's like a recurring theme is understanding that these are vehicles. These are not toys.
They are not toys, and they have the potential for very severe injuries.
So it sounds like 3 things parents should take away from this when we're thinking about injury prevention. First, helmets work.
Helmets work.
Second, most serious injuries happen when speed is involved. And third, most injuries are predictable and preventable.
So overall, lesson for summer school this week, the goal isn't wrapping your kids in bubble wrap. It's helping them enjoy summer while reducing the chance that they spend part of it in the emergency department.
And next week, we'll have another lesson from the pediatric emergency department.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Rolin Forward podcast. I'm Dr. Stephanie Rolin.
I'm Dr. Alicia Rolin.
If you enjoyed this, leave us a 5-star review, share it with a friend.
Shoot us an email. We're at RolinForwardShow. That's ROLIN@gmail.com.
And we'll be back next week with another lesson from the pediatric emergency department, which is making me begin to think that summer might be dangerous.
And that's because you have been paying attention.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
If you're happy and you know, clap your hands. If you're hungry and you know, stamp your feet. If you're hungry and you know, everywhere watch yourself. If you're happy and you know, stamp your feet. If you're sad and you don't cry, cry, cry. And if you're happy and you don't let it laugh. No, do like this. Ha, ha, ha.
Ho, ho, ho.
I cannot hear you again.